What's going on, everyone? Welcome into a Cleveland Browns mailbag. Today's show was filmed during our live show, which airs every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. As our first question comes in from an underrated Will Ferrell movie TV character, Tim Watley. Thoughts on adding Chase Young this offseason? All the Buckeyes fans listening right now just had their ears perk up a little bit when they heard Chase Young potentially returning to Ohio. Now, Chase Young is a bit of an enigma, right? On one hand, he's got 7.5 sacks this year. He's made some really good plays for the 49ers at times. But then we all saw the clip of Jahmyr Gibbs running into the end zone and a lack of effort from Chase Young. And the 49ers, they don't really seem poised to guarantee to want to run it back with Chase Young. The trade's already worked out for them, right? They gave up a day 2 pick, and they are in the Super Bowl. That was the point of making that trade. So I don't think it's a lock that they bring him back. But I have mixed feelings on Chase Young. I think he's a very talented player, of course, but maybe with Jim Schwartz and the right coaching staff around him, they can kind of kick that shitty effort to the curb. And that would fall under Myles Garrett's jurisdiction. If you could get Chase Young for a little bit cheaper than maybe what I'm projecting, I wouldn't be too opposed to it, but the effort concerns, they definitely scare me. I'd be lying if I act like it was no big deal at all. So if you guys are interested in signing Chase Young, let me know. Yes or no. Personally, I'm not in love with the idea, but every man's got a price, and if his price is pretty low, yeah, I can get around it for sure. But once I have an idea of what he signs for, I can come back to this question and go, I would or I would not have offered that contract. Lil Beam, PD, I have been looking at quarterback coach candidates for the Browns, but there is a name that I think they should look at. What about Tim Kelly, who was recently fired by the Titans? Tim Kelly was the Houston Texans offensive coordinator when Deshaun Watson was down in H-Town, and then when Brian Callahan came down to Nashville, they got rid of the offensive coordinator and Tim Kelly. I have heard Tim Kelly tossed out a bunch, and what I've heard from people in Berea is that the Browns, they're not interested in trying to recreate the 2020 Houston Texans. It's 2024. Teams have to progress. So that has sort of been a reason why there may have been some pushback on bringing the band back together in Cleveland. But it's all in on 2024. And Tim Kelly had success. So as a quarterback's coach, yeah, I'm not opposed to this one at all, Lil B. Dr. Crew, what would be more costly, losing Bill Callahan or Jim Schwartz? I would say Jim Schwartz. What we saw from Jim Schwartz this past season has me super fired up for what this defense can look like in year 2 and year 3 with Jim Schwartz as their leader, right? We saw a dramatic turnaround from 2022 to 2023, but there are still areas to improve, specifically on the road. So, big leap forward in 2023, but I'm very excited for 2024. Whereas Bill Callahan, don't get me wrong, I'm not excited about that departure. It's still a stinger of a loss. However, that offensive line, I would say, is in a pretty good spot from where he started to where he left off. And they're ready to roll with, anyone driving the bus right now. Tim Green, I was salty on AVP and the Callahans leaving, but I feel the Browns are making good coaching hires. Dorsey, Tommy Rees, Cesaire. Your thoughts? And then 2 Chubb tickets, which we talk about during our live show. So tune in so you know what he's talking about. I am pretty upbeat about the Browns' hires. Losing coaches is always a bummer. But if the Cleveland Browns become the standard, the model, where other teams are poaching their coaches to bring that success to their organization, then that's got to feel pretty good, doesn't it? For all the years of the Browns hiring other people's coaches to try and bring their success over to Cleveland, if the Browns all of a sudden are looked at as, hey, that's the team to beat, that's the model, that's the standard to compete with, you're doing pretty good as a franchise, I would say. So it sucks, no doubt about it, but I'd rather have it this way than be a franchise that's always hiring other teams' coaches. Lil Beam, should the Browns trade a 5th-round pick for Brandin Cooks? He went for a 5th-rounder last year to Dallas. He's got, I think probably 1 year left on his contract. Kind of goes back to, do the Browns want to recreate the 2020 Houston Texans? I don't think so. They didn't really play ball with Hopkins or Cooks last offseason. I'm not quite sure if we're going to see that change this offseason. So I would rather the Browns hold on to their 5th-round pick than trade for Brandin Cooks. But it is an all-or-nothing kind of year, it feels like, in 2024, so I could see the urgency kicking in for Andrew Berry. But ultimately, I'd probably hold on to my 5th-rounder. Before we get on to the rest of today's mailbag, I do want to tell you guys about our sponsor today, which is Game Time. If you are planning a last-moment trip to the big game, you can save $100 when you use code VEGAS100. Now, if you're not going to the big game, you can get $20 off any ticket when you use code BROWNSCHAT for a Cavs or a Guardians game or something like that. But for anyone trying to make a last-minute trip to the big game in Vegas, use code VEGAS100, get $100 off. Is that going to dramatically alter the ticket price? No, I'm not. I'll be honest with you guys. But $100 is still $100. So if you are thinking of going, if you want to go, just make sure you use that code. That way you can at least save yourself an extra $100. But for everyone else that wants to go see the Cavs play, or you want to see Guardians spring training, or you want to see a concert, or any other sporting event in your local area, download Game Time today. Use code BROWNSCHAT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, download Game Time and use code BROWNSCHAT for the best last-minute seats. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Tim Green III, what's going on? All in all, the Brownies had a great 2023 season given the circumstances. Eli wants that Chubb helmet. We got a Nick Chubb helmet giveaway going on during our live show, so tune in so you know what Tim Green is talking about. But you're right. All in all, yes, a tremendous season and a disastrous ending. But there is plenty to learn from in that ending, but there's plenty to be proud of what the Browns accomplished in 2023. Now, 2024 is interesting because the schedule gets tougher. Last year, the Browns had a 4th-place schedule. This year, they play a 2nd-place schedule. So they're going to play tougher teams, but if you want to hang with the best of them, you're probably not going to go to the Super Bowl with a Mickey Mouse path. You're probably going to have to come and overcome some adversity. Right? You don't want to be a team like, say, like the Miami Dolphins last year, who, beat up all the bad teams, but when they played the good teams, they lost. I'm not completely afraid of playing some tougher opponents, but the thing that balances that tougher schedule out is you hopefully are going to get healthy. You're going to get your top 2 starting tackles back. You're going to get your quarterback back. You're going to get your running back back. You're going to get your starting safety Grant Delpit back. You're going to get your middle linebacker if Anthony Walker resigns back. Like, you're going to get Myles Garrett with a healthy shoulder back. So hopefully that kind of balances things out and the Browns can learn from 2023. I'm not going to pretend and act like, moral victories are cool. Like, no. The Browns got their shit pushed in the playoff game, and that's not acceptable. But I can also look at all the great things that happened last season and be proud of that too. Jackson Green, why are the Browns not just flat out saying Ken is going to call plays next year and lingering around the thought of Kevin still calling plays? Jackson, that's a good question, and I don't really have the answer. Like, I'm trying to think of the strategic element to dragging it out. If they truly do know the answer right now, maybe they don't. Maybe that's still a conversation being had because it is early February and they have until September to really make that decision. If they are truly dragging it out, the only reason I could think that as is maybe the Browns kind of want to have a quiet news dump and not make that be a big headline story and try and slip that in the cracks during free agency and whatnot. But other than that, I'm not quite sure, Jackson. Marty Huggins. What's going on, Marty? Any chance of a DeAndre Hopkins trade this offseason? I don't think the Titans are going to want to move on from DeAndre Hopkins. I think they like what they have in Will Levis, and if they want to see Will Levis take a good jump in year 2, trading away the receiver he threw 3 touchdowns to in his NFL debut probably isn't going to help that. So whenever we talk about trade, people tend to forget it takes 2 to trade. I don't think the Titans want to trade DeAndre Hopkins. Now let me know. Would you want to trade for DeAndre Hopkins? Trade or pass? I think Andrew Berry looks back to last offseason and regrets not signing DeAndre Hopkins. I remember having kind of let's all sit down for a moment and knock the silliness out of us that we're going to pass on DeAndre Hopkins because we want to see DPJ more. DPJ had a really good 2022 season, but come on, one's DeAndre Hopkins, one is fighting for a roster spot next season. I'm going to take DeAndre Hopkins. And I wish the Browns did that last year. This year, it might be too late. Joshua Miller, what move would or could the Browns make to show that they're not just all in for 24, but they're desperate to win in 24? Josh asked the best questions. All right, Josh, let's play ball. What's a move that says the Browns are desperate to win in 2024? Desperate move, I think, would be a Chris Jones signing could be fun. A T. Higgins signing could be fun. I'm thinking if they are truly like all in for 2024, this one's not going to sound good to a lot of ears, but they're like, we're not going to wait for Nick Chubb to return. We're just going to go out and get Saquon Barkley. We're going to go out and sign Josh Jacobs. We're going to go get a new starting running back because even if Nick Chubb does return in 2024, there's a very real chance that he starts the year on the PUP list and misses the first couple of weeks. And maybe the Browns go, we don't have time to wait. We want to go get a starting running back who can start week 1 to the final week of the season. So maybe that's a Saquon Barkley or someone like that. That could be a we're not messing around kind of move here. But Josh, excellent question as always. Let's wrap up the show by picking a card. Trizzy Trace, what are we feeling?
Going ace of diamonds today.
Ace of diamonds. I'm thinking 10. Thinking 10.
I like.
And I'm thinking 10 of hearts.
Ooh. It's a good sounding card.
Are you ready? 10 of hearts. 10 of clubs.
Oh.
10 of clubs. I have hit the back iron twice this offseason. Okay. That will do it for us on this edition of the Cleveland Browns Report. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you're still watching, type CLE in the comment section. I always love to know who watches all the way until the end of the video.